Good morning, Morning Musings by Melinda. How are you today? It looks like it's going to be a lovely day today, and I hope that you're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning and ready to rock and roll and have a great day. Every day you should be getting up and saying, I really am embracing this day in all of its fullness and everything that the universe and God has to bring to me. And today's topic is about the keys to hearing God's voice. And the number one key, I'm going to wait until about number 9 because some people don't join me until we get started a little bit, and it's the most important key. So, we're always talking about how do we communicate with God, and it brings to mind that old story about the man in the flood on the roof who was asking God to save him. And, people came along a couple of times to give him a means of transportation to save him. And he was waiting for God to save him. And eventually he drowned. And when he got to heaven, he said, God, why didn't you save me? And God said to him, I sent you a rowboat and a helicopter. What more did you want? Because we often miss the ways that we communicate with God. So I thought we would talk about what that meant today. First and foremost, I would like you to see if you could wrap your head around the fact that we seem to believe as human beings that God is a thinking being. And when we look at God as a thinking being, then we have to wrap our heads around, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do children die? Why does this one's prayers get answers and that one's prayers do not? And so we have to take away this idealized version of a big guy that lives above us in the clouds that in some form or fashion thinks, judges, and, weighs punishment out to the little masses that he is supposedly loving. So if you could wrap your head around the idea that God is an energy field. Now, in spirituality, they're always talking about the universe, and I do believe that God and the universe mirror each other, are one entity in certain ways. But I still don't believe in spirituality that we should be taking God and everything that we've learned about what God says through different avatars and prophets out of the mix. So we have to find a balance between how we believe God to be. But for the sake of understanding the 11 keys to hearing God's voice, you must wrap your head around that God is an energy, a feeling energy, not a thinking being. So the first key to being able to hear God's voice is to cultivate a gratitude mindset. And that gratitude mindset has to be no matter what. Even when there's blessings in disguise, even when you're putting up with a lot of stuff in your life that feels uncomfortable or, hurtful or, puts you in a state of deep fear or loss or whatever it is as human beings that we perceive emotionally, you have to see if you can find whatever silver lining is in every cloud. And it's amazing to me that when I deal with parents who have lost children and they move it into a spiritual place, somehow they're more capable of finding that silver lining in all things than a lot of the rest of us are, because they have had to put into perspective their loss in such a manner as they can move forward on the earth plane. So cultivating a gratitude mindset is actually a continuous mindset of being grateful for whatever experiences come our way. Second is that you have to surrender to the universe, and this is something that people don't understand at all. And I always talk about it in regards to playing a tug of war with somebody. When you let go of the rope, the other team falls down. You just have to surrender to what is sometimes. And that is really the hardest thing for us to do as human beings, because we want to control everything. And the only thing that we can truly control is our own emotions and how we feel about something. And sometimes we just have to neutralize our feelings in such a manner that it doesn't take the power of our energy anymore. And so that's part of being able to hear God's voice, is to surrender to what is and allow it to be that, and make movement within you that you can wrap your head around it and embrace it so that you can find balance and harmony. Third is to embrace a full life. When you're a deadbeat human being, and I don't mean that as a judgment, I'm talking about, well, you've heard of deadbeat dads, those who don't go visit their children or give money to the mother who's struggling to take care of them. A deadbeat human is somebody who doesn't go visit themselves and doesn't inhabit their own bodies, so to speak, and doesn't give the full abundance of love to themselves and look for ways and means to have a happy life and have new adventures and try new things and experience. And so you have to embrace a full life in order to hear God's voice. Release your surface dwelling mentality is one other way of being able to hear God's voice. A surface dwelling mentality is someone who says, I don't want to think about it, so therefore it was not. Meaning that they're not ready, willing, and able to dig back into old childhood trauma. We've talked about this before, and look at it, understand it, work with it, release it. They don't realize that they're still carrying it around with them in some form or fashion, and that it reflects in their behavior and in their relationships. And so they don't look at anything other than what's on the surface. And having a surface dwelling mentality is not serving you here on the earth plane, because you're really supposed to find the fullness of who you are, good, bad, and indifferent. The fifth way to hear God's voice is to find passion in your success. Sometimes success is not enough. There are lots of people that come to see me that in our way of viewing them, they're highly successful. They got a nice house, car, money, whatever, the trappings of third dimension, but they don't feel any passion. And when you don't feel any passion, you're really not successful. So you have to find passion whatever you do. I realize there are times that we have to take a job here on third dimensional earth plane in order to feed ourselves. But that doesn't mean we don't do passion outside of that work. So if you're a banker and your passion is children, then go be a big brother or a big sister, something along those lines, okay? The sixth thing that helps you to hear God's voice is to make sure that you're living in honesty and integrity. And we've talked about this 1,042 times. And so that, really has to do with being honest and integrous with oneself rather than with people around you. Because when you're honest and integrous with yourself, you own up to your own personal responsibility and behavior. And that helps you to find yourself and to be able to mirror the universe and hear God's voice much better. 7, I kind of added 7 into something that I already talked about, and that is, again, finding those blessings in disguise. And now I'm ready to give you what I think is really number 1, but I made it number 8 because I wanted everybody to see it. And that is the thing that I harp on you in a constant musing, and that's prayer and meditation. So remember that prayer means that you're sending energy out to God, to the universe, and that meditation means you're receiving. So one is giving and one is receiving. And it actually looks like an 8, but it looks like the sign of infinity this way, okay? And this is how your DNA strand looks too. And where prayer and meditation meet in the middle, that's where you hear God's voice, right there. Okay, so when you're hearing God's voice right there in the middle, okay, what you are is using Kabbalistic numerology, because in the Kabbalah, 7 equals perfection. There's 7 days to make the earth, etc., 7 chakras. But the 8 is one step above natural order. So you have to kind of combine your meditation and your prayer in such a manner that you are doing both and finding that balance. 9 is to treat yourself kindly at all times. That inner voice of yours that tells you that you are inadequate is your parents' voice in some form or fashion. They felt inadequate and projected it onto you. I have deep regrets about being that type of parent when I was young with my oldest child, because that's the way I was parented. And so sometimes it goes down the generations, and you have to learn about what that means. So you have to work with that inner voice that says you're not good enough. There's something called the imposter syndrome. that is interesting to look up, because it's when somebody is excelling at a high level, but they always feel like somebody's going to find out that they're not really what that they look that they are. The 10th is to listen to your heart. God speaks through your heart, not through your brain. Your thoughts can get in your way, and so you really have to think and listen with your heart. Trust your body. If you have health issues, your body is trying to say that something is not working for you in the energy field around you, and you're not processing it in a way that makes sense, except for if you have a karmic illness, okay? There's 3 ways to have health issues. I'll discuss that tomorrow. And lastly, number 11 is to lead through love. Don't be a follower, be a leader through love, and particularly with social media and everything that is happening in the U.S. right now, you really have to lead through love and try the best way that you can not to make a negative statement to somebody, but rather than if you do not agree, just let it go and let go of the rope, okay? So those are the 11 ways to hear God's voice. And then God's voice is sometimes very loud and other times very subtle. And you have to be able to look at the subtleties of God's voice as well as the big things. It's not always a big boom. Sometimes it's a small tweet, and I'm not talking about the tweets that come from the White House. So I just hope that you have a really, really great day, and that this helped you this morning. And I am looking forward to Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, when Duffy McMahon, my friend, and I will be doing live readings. I'll be doing readings. Duffy actually is a doctor of human sexuality and a hypnotherapist, and she'll be answering some of those questions. And I'm glad, Tina, that you hear God's voice the way that you do. Everybody have a great day.